Srimad Vallabhacharyaji revolutionizes worship, under which first comes faith. Srimad Vallabh was a strict non-dualist, meaning for him faith must be in one single form of God, as noted in the Bhagavad Gita. He is the source of all other gods and goddesses, whom he respected, but he felt, why to go to others when one can go to the ultimate source of all? For him, that was Lord Shri Krishna, and only Lord Shri Krishna. He propounded love of one God and only one God, Lord Shri Krishna. He acknowledged in Vallabh that people can have belief in other aspects of this one God, but he also advises them to be faithful to that one God. God should always be remembered in good times and in bad times without loss of faith. He would remind devotees that God has purpose for us even in tough times. So paramount faith in one God, Shri Krishna, is essential. He advised against false teachers who preyed on anxiety and misdirected people for their own personal material gain, rather than truly uplifting them and helping them understand their true nature and approach. He thus said to always utter Lord Shri Krishna's name and remember to always be in the refuge of Lord Shri Krishna. Thus he gave the mantra Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. The second aspect of revolutionizing worship is prayers. Srimad Vallabhacharyaji also reoriented the thinking behind the purpose of prayer. During his time, people were often praying for material needs and boons, but he felt the main reason for prayers is for purification of the heart, to have experience of Lord Shri Krishna and to experience Shri Krishna's love. This type of prayer gives confidence to the devotee that God will be his or her caretaker, as God knows what he or she needs. Yet, it also implies that each devotee should be doing their best to please God to their best ability, and thus, if he or she tries their best, God will always do what God feels they deserve. After all, God is just. The best prayers, according to Sri Vallabh, are those that seek Shri Krishna for his love, like the gopis of Vraj. Vratrasur, Kunti, and Bhishma Pitama also offered their prayers to thank the Lord or to ask for forgiveness, and Gajendra asked to be rescued by the Lord. But the prayers of gopis were selfless and pure, expressing their love and desire to have his darshan, such as the Gopi Geet in the 10th canto of the Bhagavad Purana. It is considered the highest form of prayer. The Shodash Granth also are considered a form of prayer in Pushtimarg. Why? Because recitation of these prayers with real understanding of their deep meaning can help one grow closer to God through inner contemplation, increased love and understanding of God, and thereby better devotion. People tend to mechanically recite prayers, and that was the case also during Srimad Vallabhacharyaji's time. They merely did prayers with expectation to receive favor of God. Mahaprabhuji pointed out that God's favor and grace is always upon us, and we should make only that effort to realize and experience Shri Krishna's grace. Therefore, the prayers that Vallabhacharyaji composed were merely to praise the Lord and to increase one's devotion by making oneself more aware of God's grace. For example, in the Krishnashraya Stotra, he says that whatever circumstances you may be in, which tests your faith in yourself or God, never lose your faith in God. Sri Vallabhacharyaji reminds us that a true devotee is never forsaken by the Lord. In the Jalbhed Stotra, he talks of being aware of the types of people who speak of divinity and to be able to know the intent of each speaker. In the text Vivek Dhairya Ashray, Sri Vallabhacharyaji advises wisdom, perseverance, and refuge are three main keys that create and maintain the firm mood of devotion. These qualities are to be imbibed so as to become a better devotee. The third aspect is religious texts. Sri Vallabhacharyaji's whole philosophy originated from Vedic teachings. He incorporated complete aspects of Vedic teachings in his philosophical teachings and not just parts of it. Thus, he incorporated and believed that the object of the Vedas is to teach the supremacy of devotion as a means of God realization. In addition, he also emphasized teachings from Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutras for better understanding and connection with God. Furthermore, he was the first to also use Srimad Bhagavatam as a major source of authoritative teaching and pointed out the means to true selfless one-point focus and devotion to God could be learned from the gopis whose life and deeds as well. From this, Srimad Vallabhacharyaji presented a unique form of selfless worship that was focused on fulfilling the needs of God and thus presented an approach to worship from passive worship such as in puja, which was done to ask for favor such as good health, a child, more wealth, etc., to active selfless pleasing and unexpectational worship of the Lord, which is known as seva. There were key concepts that Sri Vallabhacharyaji reminded followers of Sanatana Dharma that Lord Shri Krishna had discussed in the Bhagavad Gita and which masses had forgotten. We will focus on such three: Yagna, Yoga, and Tap. Yagna. From the time of the Vedas, Yagna has been used as a means of purification of the self as well as society. But people later merely focused on the sacrificial ceremony that conjured up a vision of flames with oblation offered. But Vallabhacharyaji noted that Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita said that every action of a person could be a form of sacrifice if done to attain or serve God or the creation in which he resides. He noted three categories of yagna based on the intent. First, for fulfilling one's desire, adi bhautik. Second, without desires but for spiritual progress, which is adhyatmic. And third, for merely enjoying the service of God, which is adhidevik. This was the highest form of realizing God he felt. The second step is tap. At the time of Sri Vallabhacharyaji, the word tap implied austerity or voluntary physical hardship. But Sri Vallabhacharyaji felt that this diverted from realizing the spiritual joy of discovering God. He felt penance should be directed at experiencing God's love and pointed to the gopis' tap, which was a mental state of enduring pangs of love while separate from Lord Shri Krishna. The third step is yoga. Patanjali's yoga was popular at the time of Sri Vallabhacharyaji, and people tend to focus on suppression of the mind, body, and senses through discipline to attain perfection. Srimad Vallabhacharyaji pointed again to Sri Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, which Sri Krishna said, Yoga is a means of union with God. Vallabhacharyaji pointed out that Sri Krishna said, of all yogis, those whose minds are always absorbed in me and who engage in devotion to me with great faith, them I consider to be the highest of all. Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo matah. This is the approach Sri Vallabhacharyaji propounded. So instead of suppression, the mind should be sublimated so that the desires of the devotees are not suppressed but are joined in the service of God. Thus, as Sri Krishna said, true yoga's value is when it unites the soul with the God. So, in these ways, Sri Vallabhacharyaji revolutionized worship.